We have 8.1, public question time. 8.1.1 is answers to questions taken on notice. Those answers are on our website. 8.1.2, questions given on notice. There was no questions given on notice for tonight's council meeting. 8.1.3, questions without notice via email. There were 3 from Mr Swan, M Dredge and J Edmondson, and those answers are on the website. Okay. From the gallery, welcome to public question time. If you have a question, as the chair, I will ask that you come forward to the microphone and identify yourself by name and area where you live. To make things fair and equitable, we have a limit of 2 questions per person. We normally allocate 15 minutes, but we'll try to accommodate everybody. All questions must be directed to me as the chairperson, and I will either answer the question or refer the question to another councillor or the general manager or the CEO, as is now. Debate on questions cannot be entered into. The council cannot make decisions on issues that arise in public question time. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and ask a question? Yes, come forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz Smith from Signet. Looking at the agenda, under the heading Climate in General Reports, there's reference to a project called Adapt Land and Sea that is being led by the National Environment Science Programme. Council officers attended a workshop to provide input on the development of a national climate adaptation platform for biodiversity. So, given the rapid changes that are already happening due to the warming climate and the declaration of a climate emergency by the council, which is the southernmost local government area in the country, it's really important that biodiversity in the Huon Valley is made a real priority. So my questions are, what is the National Environmental Science Programme? And are there ways in which the community can be involved in working with the council to support biodiversity on land and in the waterways of the valley? So that's the first part of the question.
Would you like an answer to
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I will then pass that through to the CEO.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Dr. Smith. I'll take that on notice and give you a... Sorry, my voice is leaving me tonight. I'll need to take it on notice and give you a fulsome answer, particularly in regards to how the community can get involved in it. I'm just not familiar enough with it at the moment.
So, and you'll provide an explanation
of what it
easy to
is,
understand explanation of the National Environmental Science Programme and what it means in the local area.
Correct.
Yep. Thank you. And the other part of the question is, how will the community be kept informed about how the Huon Valley Council is contributing to national environmental efforts to assist, in particular, with the adaptation of threatened species to the rapidly changing climate?
Okay, I'll pass that one on. We'll probably have to take that on notice.
I imagine you will take that on notice and include that as part of the... But I think that it would be good if the community can get an understanding of what's meant by that.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else with a question? Wow. That was probably the quickest question time. Okay, thank you.
Would you like to address while we have the opportunity to, we can do it in the announcements, but talk about the PowerPoint?
Would you like to do that now?
Do it in council question time.
Okay, yep, all right. Okay, we're up to 8.2, deputations, Neil. Petitions, Neil. 10, Planning Authority. There's no reports tonight. Nope. 11, General Reports. Are there any councillors tabling their activities tonight? Okay. Would anyone like to speak to their activities? No? Okay. Would you like to? No? Okay. Thank you. All right. 11.003/824. That the general reports and minutes be received and noted. Do I have a councillor to move a motion that the general reports and minutes for the period of 1 to 29 February be received and noted? Do I have a councillor to move that? Councillor Camber-Smith, and a seconder? Councillor Robertson? Councillor Camber-Smith, do you wish to speak to this?
I just had a couple of questions, if I may,
Yes, you may.
Mayor. I would be interested in a bit of an update on the joint, I can never remember the acronym, the Joint Southern Tasmanian Regional Waste Authority meeting.
STRAW.
On the yeah, STRAW. I didn't think everybody would know what STRAW meant.
I could, and what I might do is have it put on the site,
Yeah,
the minutes from the meeting. They've only just come through for us to have a look at. It's something that I think that we have to put a bit more energy into, everybody. So, and I think everybody's feeling that same way. So, yes, I think you'll see some action, but possibly in different ways
Yeah,
with
great.
that. But I will get the minutes put up for everybody to see.
They seem to be spending more on planning and admin than actually on doing things, which is a bit of a concern.
And it's really hard.
It's,
yeah.
it's in its early
Yeah.
stages. It
Yeah.
is. I think they themselves acknowledge that it's taken some time to establish. It is frustrating. It's certainly frustrating us, and we've registered that level of discontent with that. They do now. They've clarified their strategic plan, etc. So we're only just starting to be able to engage in what exactly it is they're going to do, and for us to start to establish what value for money council is seeing out of it, and ultimately how the rates levy, the waste levy that's being collected from everyone using our waste transfer stations, is actually being reinvested down
Distributed,
here
yeah.
and redistributed. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's very early days.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was quite surprised at the wildlife monitoring sites. It's great that council's taking part in the wild tracker. I was surprised that the only sighting was a feral cat. I was interested. So I was just wondering where they were, because, given the huge quantity of, wildlife in the area, we didn't see something a bit more.
I'm not familiar with where
No,
those stations
okay.
are, no. But
Okay.
we can provide that info to you.
Okay, I mean, the only other thing was the, and I'm not sure because of the docs on tap, I'm not actually certain where this comes, whether it's part of the general reports. Is the planning reports within? Yeah, okay, good. The lease of land at Ranelagh, we have the cost of repairs, and I just wondered if we have a view on how much that's going to cost and who actually built the stockyards. It just says it's going to be part of the... Oh, that's what I'm asking, is it? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. There's so many different things. I haven't
Yeah.
quite worked out where they all slot in
Yeah.
each end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that it? Yep. Any other? Yes, Paul?
I just was being I guess the dripping tap on our commitment to working with all levels of government and communities and business on action on climate change. And I guess I was wondering, with the change of government, whether we should take a front foot and talk to them about developing public transport, preserving forests, regenerative agriculture, and I guess also whether we can get some support in bushfire preparation for next summer, because winter's a really good time to be actually preparing. And, every summer seems to be getting worse. So.
Well, I think that we're all going to be sitting and waiting to see who that government will be, and what they'll. But yes, definitely, our first port of call will be to make contact with all levels of government once it's finalised, and now that we have a climate change officer,
yeah.
that makes it easier, and I know that, as Dr. Smith said about the different things that are happening, so, and I know that, they will be talking to other councils and seeing what we can do as a collective in preference to just doing something on our own, so a little bit of pressure. Yeah, so definitely. Any other?
I did have one on the planning approved under delegation. Just a question about the conversion to visitor accommodation, whether, because my understanding from reading it is that it was an unapproved structure that got converted in, and I just wondered what the performance measure was, because it wasn't sort of mentioned in the documentation.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass that through to the...
Through you, Mayor, we'll just take that on notice and come back to you on that.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to follow up on that one, because that was one of the ones I had flagged myself. I mean, if a building has never had a permit, how does it then get a change of use permit? Is there not also some retrospective compliance action involved? It seemed a bit odd.
Do I come through to you with that one, or same
Through you,
deal?
I'll take that on notice.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Yes, Councillor Armstrong? Burgess? Sorry. Robertson?
We were talking about Valley families earlier.
Yeah.
Question around the planning report and statistics. So we've got 173 outstanding DAs at the moment. I'm curious as to the proportion of those that are perceived as valid applications versus not valid applications. We're coming close to the transition to a different planning scheme where that number, which has stayed remarkably stable at around 170 or 180 for the last year or so, will become a backlog, and while staff transition to learning the provisions of the new Tasmanian scheme and LPS that we get, the old scheme provisions will almost become a liability in terms of assessment, and something that holds our staff back from keeping up with the new system. How are we managing the risk from that, and what proportion of those applications are valid or invalid?
Thank you, and I will go through to the director, but I know what the answer is going to be.
Through you, Mayor, we have one particular process that we've identified for all the invalid or currently invalid applications that we will be writing to all those applicants to make sure that they're fully aware of the circumstances and need to do what they need to do under the current scheme, or have their considerations as to whether they wish to put a new application in under the new scheme. Would have to take it on notice as the number of those applications.
Any other? Councillor Campbell-Smith, do you wish to close?
No, it's all good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. If there's no other, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, councillors, and the motion is carried. Uh, 11.7, there's no committee meetings. 12 council workshops. Would you like to advise on our workshops, please? Or you're right to do that? Yep.
Thank you. We've had 4 in the last period, so fees and charges. We had our finance manager presented an overview of the development of council's fees and charges for the 24-25 financial year. We then had an update from our manager of economic development on our brand strategy, which is the Huon Valley Place brand program. That was providing background information on the program, its value, its importance for serving and supporting our local economy, and provided detail on the marketing plan, the budget and performance of the marketing strategy. We workshopped our communication and engagement strategy, where a draft was presented and to councillors to provide comments that'll inform the development of a framework and an action plan. And lastly, we had our draft managing unacceptable customer behaviour policy and procedure, which had been referred back to a workshop having been presented to councillors in a previous council meeting. We had a significant discussion with all councillors providing their feedback, and the draft policy is currently being redrafted.
Thank you. Okay, we're up to councillor question.
Just quickly, we didn't have any, bar Dr. Smith's question, we didn't have any public questions, and I'm anticipating that many of the people in the audience here tonight came to hear about the Palais Management Committee. So I just wanted to assure people that Council does not want to take management of the Palais away from the community. We are moving as quickly as possible to restore community management with a supporting framework that will follow recommendations of the review we're undertaking. Operational reviews are a necessary and normal feature of public administration, and they've been quite long overdue, really, to have a review of all council's halls, all council hall committees. That wider process is currently underway, and all hall committees were notified of that in their last AGM in the lead up to Christmas. So it's quite a normal process. We definitely understand the public interest in the Palais. We have had to act and to undertake a process. We're providing all the information we can through media releases, and we'll continue to do that so people are kept as up to date as we possibly can. But we need to respect, operational privacy, etc. So we'll bring it to close as soon as possible, and have every interest in putting it back into the community's capable hands. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 13.1, answers to questions taken or notice, there was none. 13.2, questions given on notice, there was none. Questions without notice, Councillor Campbell Smith had a couple of questions and they've been answered there. You've seen, no, haven't been?
I haven't.
Okay, haven't. Okay, all right. Do you want to read out your questions and then, yep, and I'll give you.
Yeah, I did have another one actually that sprung to mind. I wondered if Council was getting involved in Science Week this year, 10th to 18th of August, if there's any thought been given to that, given that their involvement in climate change and various things.
It's not something that we're considering at the moment.
Okay. Can the CEO please confirm my understanding that unless private land is a private timber reserve or in a significant agricultural zone, a forest practice plan cannot be used for the clearing of vegetation without also obtaining planning approval from council when that clearing is for the purpose of constructing a building or undertaking any associated development, as there appears to be some confusion on this matter within the community.
I'll pass that through to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Look, I'd agree there is some confusion in this space in how, in the interpretation. I would like, we'll commit council to approach the Forest Practices Authority with the intent of clarifying the interpretation and then jointly communicating the interplay that exists between the Land Use and Planning Approvals Act and Forest Practice Regulations, and that way we can, assure we've got a common standard. So I'm not going to comment at the moment though on what's the right or wrong approach. I'd like to do that in participation with the FPA.
Okay, thank you. The other one was really just a point of clarification. We've had a bit of discussion once or twice about the improvement in turnover of the RV park in Geeveston since it's been taken over by the CMCA. And there was some confusion about the total amount and also where those profits were heading. And I wondered if we had any answers
We have.
to that.
These are not profits. Okay. Yep. The CMCA advised that have advised that the total economic impact of guest spend in Geeveston totals over the 600K over the 3 years. So it's the spend.
Economic impact. How on earth do they?
Well, they ask
judge
I suppose they ask them on how much they spend.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. That means how much has been spent at local shops and businesses in the town by those who have been camping at the site. The Geeveston town and surrounding areas benefit from the spend.
Okay, so it was nothing to do with turnover or profits. It was,
No.
it was impact.
It's the impact and spend.
All right, thank you.
Okay. There was no questions on notice tonight. Nope. There's no report. Nope. Nope. Sorry. Sorry, Amy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I had asked this in the background just recently, but particularly in light of some comments around biodiversity issues, which I expect our NRM strategy will be pretty key in facilitating for the council organisation and the community. That strategy expired, or the current strategy expired at the end of 2021, and it's been under development since then. The last communication I had on it was around November. Do we have an update on how its development is progressing and when we might see a draft NRM strategy?
Pass that through to the Acting Director.
Thank you for the question. So, yes, there has been a bit of a delay in delivering that strategy or the draft strategy to Council. We've taken steps to address those challenges that we faced, and we are aiming for a report, or to work with, have a draft to Council at the June Council meeting.
Thank you. Is that the only question from you, Amy? Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Sorry, Amy, I didn't even check to see you'd finished. Through you, Mayor, slightly off topic. I was talking to some people today at work and they would like to know if council intend to do anything about the state of the beautification of the main street, because they said it looks terrible. And I did explain that the roundabout doesn't actually belong to council, it's a state growth thing. They're wondering if we have any plans or we can liaise with to beautify our street a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Can I'll come through to the CEO.
We don't have an immediate plan to do it, but related plans we've actually got and we'll be putting forward as budget submissions for this upcoming year, a pedestrian safety strategy, which does actually relate to that amenity generally of the road. We've been in discussion, or the infrastructure department's been in discussion with the Department of State Growth around what, changes, etc. And it's really quite clear that whilst it's not our asset, we need to do the research, the underpinning work, to demonstrate what needs to be done, and put it to them to participate and contribute to that, to the physical work being done. So we are going to need to bring this. Beautification has been something that previous councils have attempted to move along with grant funding, etc. We need to bring this back. Safety, amenity, beautification, the whole lot, what we can do with Main Street. We need to fund the research to put a proposal forward and then work out the costing arrangements, whether that's grant, whether it's a share from the state, whether we co-fund it. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Director?
No, that pretty much sums up. We've been doing some work in the background, so you will see some. Yes, we have been working with State Growth in the background, and they actually advised us on what steps they would like to see from us in order to support any submissions that we propose. So we've done that investigation, and you'll be seeing as part of the budget some of those recommendations.
Brilliant.
Talking Huonville or Signet, sorry.
Yornville Main Street.
Yeah, it was really interesting too, because she is nearly 100. So she's very active for nearly 100 and has seen lots of changes throughout her time living in the Huon and around the valley. And she actually made the comment, this is probably the worst she'd ever seen Huonville be. So I thought that's pretty profound when somebody that's lived right around the Huon her whole life. So I thought, probably should ask this question publicly then.
Yep.
So thanks for the answer.
It's certainly been a busy summer, and to your half-asked question then, half-asked, not half-asked. Rephrase. Asked. It's I'll blame my croaky voice. We've been having similar discussions with State Growth around Signet as well, around the Main Street there. And it's the same story. We need to invest in those plans in order to galvanise some investment in it.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Mayor, I have two, and just to support you, General Manager, I have sent them to you. The first one is when I can find it. Relates to the motion that Councillor Temby and I moved in December, and that was to for the council to enter into discussions with Derwent Valley and Kingborough regarding the future of local government report. And I'm just wondering if the Mayor could update us on any progress, or update the community on any progress with those meetings. I understand that we don't even know what minister will have carriage of this, let alone what party, but although I think we can guess that. But it would still be interesting to know just if there's been any take-up from the work that we kicked off last year.
Thank you for that question. Yes, we have met with both the Derwent Valley and Kingborough, both totally different meetings. We are going to be looking at shared resources with the Derwent Valley. How that will be, we don't know yet. It's just first talks before we come as a whole council. And with Kingborough, it was where we'll be writing to the government once it's in play to tell them that we can't move forward on any of this without any business plan or any economic drivers here, and why should we have to do it? So they've put this forward, so we're going back to them and telling them that, we'd like to know a bit more from them.
So is it fair to say, Mayor, that all three councils are still happy to talk, but we don't feel there's enough information on the table to
Definitely
talk about anything, really?
correct. Yes, you may.
I think it's definitely fair to say that there's a common appreciation of the opportunity, significantly so in the shared services space, but potentially in the amalgamation space. But as you've pointed out, economic analysis is one of the areas that needs further development, and we would like to see the state government work in collaboration with us and our partner councils to develop a common brief that can be to the benefit of all Tasmanian councils who are going through the same thing, and to be able to demonstrate to the community genuinely what that value proposition is before we commit them to a change that we're not sure what it will mean.
Or the costs.
Well,
costs.
exactly right. Exactly.
And I think we all agreed that the money's been spent and this process has been put forward to us. So instead of just putting it on a shelf, at least request some more feedback so that we can come back to the community and tell them that we have done our best to, and what is the best for them. Yes, yeah. So I think that we did agree that our next meetings would be with, once we do that, with the whole council.
Yeah, that's from the Kingborough
Yes.
perspective. Yeah, so there's some initial work to do that we'll come back to councillors on, so to engage all. Yep.
Yes?
For a second. I was actually just reviewing our website and I noticed, this is a bit of a statement and a question, and I noticed how much consultation we're doing on things at the moment. And just, I suppose, just wanted to recognise that with your 1 and a bit staff that sit in that role, that's a significant amount of work. And
Just one.
Well, just one, okay. She obviously works more than one.
She gets
person,
around.
Obviously.
Yep.
Yep. Moves fast. And I noticed there was a Signet Hall consultation process at the moment. So it's really a supplementary question to your comments. Are we going to go down a process of some form of community consultation around, particularly the major halls? Like, I think we've got 3 major halls that probably have a similar business model. So is there going to be some, down the track, some consultation on how all of that's going?
Yeah, the community's very engaged with our community halls. They're a precious asset, so there will need to be. We haven't worked out the detail of that yet. Obviously, Signet is happening, is well progressed because it's of that larger size. Geeveston's already moved into a controlling authority model, which is very different to the others. And Palais, as we know, we've currently got it under review and are managing it ourselves. It'll probably be different levels of engagement for the different halls, but there is a commonality, and we'll be in a position to explain more what that consultation looks like soon. We're in development.
Okay, yes.
So will the hall review also include an assessment of places that might be missing out on public open space and places to meet?
The review is the management arrangements of halls.
Just the management.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
okay.
not looking at the physical nature of halls or their locations. But that's something that councillors can consider and direct us to deal with accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just given the success of the recent Crabtree Crop and Crafts and the Rolling Flame pizzas in Mountain River and Crabtree. There's clearly a need for something sort of a bit more central in that area of 1,500 people. So just thought I'd.
We've heard you loud and clear on that one, Councillor Candace Smith. Yeah, that's it. Yes. Yes, Councillor Burgess.
Yeah, just a quick question. I've noticed down along the Esplanade that we've got these lovely rubbish bins. We've got a recycling bin on one side and a landfill bin on the other side. I'm assuming that these bins will be rolled out from the rest of the valley at some time. Anybody give me a
Pass
clue on
that
that?
through to...
Yeah, I'll take that on notice. There is changes to our public waste bins. I'm not updated on those since I've returned from leave, so I don't know what's been rolled out where. But yes, we are changing our public waste bins to make them to be able to recover more recycling. And a part of this is in readiness, fingers crossed, for a container deposit scheme, which may turn up one day. Yeah, there are changes. I'm just not sure where, what, and how. So I'll get you a more fulsome answer on it.
We are on to 15.1, lease of public land, Ranelagh Recreation Area, report number 15.010/24. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Campbell-Smith, and seconded Councillor Jessup. Councillor Campbell-Smith, do you wish to speak to this?
I can ask my question that was out.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just intrigued at the, you know, that we're talking about this, including the sale yards here in the lease to Haas. I just wondered, there's no cost in here or estimated cost of what the repairs would come to, and if we've got any sort of idea, and you know who actually built the stockyards originally, and also what's going to happen to the poultry shed, because wasn't that part of the? Was that not Roberts as well? Or Nutrien, I should say. Yep.
We'll pass that through to...
So what we've done up to this point is we've met with, obviously with the group that we're engaging with in terms of potentially leasing those structures. We've got a sense of what they are looking for in terms of a condition for that handover. We've taken that back and we're looking at costing that out. So we haven't got those costs but we're working on them. The idea is to look at that and to determine a cost benefit, to see that, to make sure that A, we're handing it over in a good state, but B, also that the works that are required are going to be in our interest and in the group's interest. And that cost benefit goes beyond finance. It's around what benefit the community will get from that.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So the poultry shed is separate. Is that leased?
It is separate, yes.
So who does that? How is that leased?
You want me to help you out there?
Yeah. Leased to the Show Society.
The other buildings of the Show Society, and that was extensively renovated 6 years ago. Had a new cement floor and work done by the Ag Society to make it safe, because I suppose the buildings were all built along that line around about 1965-ish. I know the lease on the sheep pens was always bizarre in that the roof was leased to the Ag Society and the pens were leased to Roberts, which made no sense. But I asked for the deferment to ask for more discussion, because I think they would be at least probably 1960s, 70s vintage, and they're not particularly safe, and I think that it's not fair on council to pass on to community groups buildings that are, OH&S nightmare sort of thing. So it was really just to have that discussion and then talk turkey.
So will they only be used sort of once a year for the show? Are there any other sort of community purpose these things could be put to in the meantime? It seems a lot of structure for once a year.
The lease, again, I'm going to help out. The lease allows that.
The lease would allow for more use than just once a year.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
And certainly the intention is to get as much public use out of those structures as possible. But currently, in their current state, they don't provide any public use. Yeah,
at all.
so.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly, the Small Farms Expo and the community there, when we did the master plan for the ground, that identified that there's ample things like the parking and stuff creates lots of opportunity if we used it, and the society was certainly open to using it when I was involved with it less. So it is an asset that is underutilised, and I hope good planning will increase that use. So I certainly commend the report too.
But it did raise the question to me with respect to our lease policy. I mean, if somebody builds a permanent structure on council land, how could it ever be leased to anyone other than the incumbent lessee? And I'm thinking of like Human Hoofbeats, and there's various other places where it's council land, but there's a big building there that's been built and belonged to someone else. I'm not quite sure how that all works.
Well,
Through you, Mayor, I think that's a consideration from council when we allow those buildings to be on there. So there are two specific leases where there are buildings which are well and truly constructed and owned on council land. There are other leases which are broad area, but there are some structures or whatever which remain in the ownership. So it would be, I suppose, in the first two instances, and one example is the PCYC, for instance.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You know, council's basically accepting that becomes a long-term lease to that that group. In other circumstances, council will have to consider on each occasion, which you do, as to what their relationship is, what investment they've made into the property. So the standard recommendation would likely be that yes, they continue, but council still has to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just add to that. The Ag Society is a bit bizarre because it was when ownership moved from the Ag Society to council is somewhat lost in time, and I think it was originally a site that was developed by Cosgrove after the war for the Ag Society. But then, Matt, you're probably more aware of when ownership moved and lost. So I think the buildings were probably done when it was Ag Society and moved across, and yeah, so that one's a bit of a strange case. But I think like anything, like next door with the horse mob there, that they've built a site on the Ag Society's land, and if they ever went defunct, they have so many months to remove that building. Otherwise, ownership moves to, because at the end of the day, if you build something on somebody else's lands, it sort of becomes theirs, really. Yeah.
Is there any other? No. Do you want to close, councillor?
No.
Okay. That's the case. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you. Do you want me to do that again? Yep. Sorry, guys, I didn't have my mic on. Councillor Campbell-Smith, do you wish to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Sorry about that. 15.2, final strategic plan, 15.001/24. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Jessup and Councillor Gibson, a seconder. Councillor Jessup. It's a bit silly to ask. Do you want to speak to your motion?
Just quickly, Mayor.
To your motion.
I read the community input, and I think there was a lot of heartfelt thought processes that went into it. There's obviously some technical specific things like Port Huon that we're obviously well across and we're dealing with at the moment, the outfill sewer site. But I think as a general rule, this report needs to be seen as a higher level report, and it should steer a lot of the other reports into things like circular economy and transport, and I think it's now up to us to use this as a base to push ahead for either funding or staff time to do those reports. And I commend the work of the staff who have worked pretty hard to pull it together and consult well with the community. So thank you, Mayor.
Do I have anyone that... Yes, Councillor Gibson.
I mean, I totally agree with Councillor Jessup's comments there. I mean, I think it's an excellent high-level document. The how and the what that follows is obviously the next stage, but the important thing is to have that clear direction set out in this guiding document. And yes, thank you very much to everybody who did this solid piece of work, and to the community for their very their constructive comments.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Robinson?
I love a good strategy and I love a concise strategy. So to get this into 18 pages, and admittedly it doesn't have pretty pictures, but well done, and those pages are numbered. I would suggest that perhaps under each strategic goal, the strategic objectives get sub-numbered or lettered, whatever system you want to use. I'm assuming that will occasionally come through into referencing the paperwork that council receives and be a useful step. But well done all.
Councillor Armstrong?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a high-level document, and we've all worked really hard, and everyone that's been involved has just about pulled their hair out at times, I think. But even though it's a high-level document, we still need to deliver that in a way that people understand it. There was a lot of critique that wasn't necessarily kind from comments, and I think part of that problem is that strategies to people that are not dealing with strategies are just a lot more mumbo jumbo that means nothing. They don't actually understand, because I didn't, what they're for, where they go, and how they actually have a role in going forward. So I think we need to just remember that we need to function on a level that is, you know, a councillor level, but we need to explain it on a level that most people can understand it. And I think we need to continue to do that, because that hits the transparency goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jessup?
Mayor, if I could suggest that is a good point, and certainly in my world, easy read documents are a useful tool, hard to produce and sometimes costly to produce, but it may be worth considering if we do an easy read version of the strategy, given that it's going to last for a few years, but and I can direct you to some agencies who can do that, but not a simplified pictorial read, but just a really worded down key point type document for takeaway. But happy to discuss that later.
It does state in there that it's noted that it could be further. It can be. It is noted in there at 19 that there could be further.
That's further editing and graphics on this document.
On this
Mark's
document.
talking about a separate complementary easy read
Yeah.
version.
Even a 2-page document that just summarises the key points that it's a takeaway for people.
Valid comment. Let us look at it.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Any other? Councillor Jessup, do you have any closing?
No, Mayor.
Okay. If that's the case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. 16.1 Financial Report. Number 16.004/24. Either refer the councillors to that recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Armstrong, and a seconder? Councillor Gibson. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to speak to this?
I think so.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, I've just lost my screen. I don't know where it's gone. Just struggling. So I was looking at the financials. Is this to do with is the financials like the playgrounds and all this sort of stuff? Is this the financials? The budget for the?
I pass that.
Like I can't find my screen. It's disappeared. Have I got a little printout?
Are you commenting
Where do you
commenting
mean?
on a report
Yeah.
or attachments?
Yeah. Is it in your attachments, Deb?
Well, I wrote down what I was concerned about anyway. It was about the budget for some swings and things. Is that what we're talking about now?
Yeah. Are you talking
Yeah.
Burton's Reserve?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Statement of profit and loss.
Oh, it just went, I lost it. So when I was reading it, I just noticed that items 64 to 73, which is a timber swing at Craddock, oh God. And then there was something at Burton's Reserve for 150,000. And what is a risk-based allowance playground, and what is street furniture?
Well,
I thought it was chairs, but
So for our playground, so risk-based assessment.
thank you.
You must be referring to the Capital Works in Progress report,
I'm not really
I'd
sure
imagine.
what yes, I think
So,
I am.
I think so.
The risk-based assessment is something that we need to do for all our playgrounds, and so there's a routine assessment that basically does a safety review
Right.
of all that equipment within the term of its expected lifetime, to make sure that it's fit for purpose. And if equipment is deemed unsafe, it either needs to be maintained differently or replaced.
Yep.
And street furniture is typically seating, etc. That's public furniture on sides of roads or around parks.
Okay, so thank you. So the Burton's Reserve $150,000 swing, Is that grant money that we've been given that is going to be put towards that playground?
No, that's a budget for the renewal of the existing playground equipment.
Which is what the consultation's been about.
Correct.
Recently.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So money's set aside for where we expect assets to depreciate over a known life cycle.
Right.
There's money set aside to replace that at the end of its life. The boat has reached that end of life
Yeah.
and is due for replacement, which is what the consultation is about.
Okay.
And that budget is set based on
Yeah.
that renewal program and the funding set aside for it.
And the timber swing at Craddock seems a bit high end, price wise. $10,200 for a timber swing.
It won't be. It's currently a timber swing, and it will be being. We don't put in timber
Anymore?
playground equipment anymore. We put in Australian standards, which is generally your metal and composites.
Brilliant.
Believe it or not, to procure and install a swing is that kind of price.
I'm sure it is, but this is what people are saying to me, $10,200 for a timber swing. So finally, 300,000K the hub, what does that mean?
That is the works to the roof of the hub, which currently has some minor leaks.
Okay. That's a lot of money for a leak. Is it a big leak?
It's a new roof is what it needs, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I do read.
Oh, I know you do. You just couldn't find what you were reading.
I just couldn't find what I was looking for in a hurry, but I wrote it down, so it was okay. Thank you.
We've known about that roof for... Yeah. Took the words clean out of my mouth. Yes, Councillor Robinson.
In the statement of profit or loss, I note that statutory fees and fines are presented as a single line item. But I guess I'm asking whether they could be separated. And that's because there's quite a different nature and purpose of those two types of income. And I think there's potential use in measuring the level of fee for service that's provided by fees versus the level of compliance activity or non-compliance that's measured by fines.
Okay, thank you. Can I go through to the Director?
Through you, Mayor. I'll take that on notice and go and have a look, because it does depend on what categories do make up that line item. As you can see, it is still under like 1.9 million, and we try and make these summary reports. So I will go back and determine the levels that we can push that down to still make the report meaningful.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Burgess.
I'm just looking at the profit, which one is it? The profit and loss. So basically, that says that we budgeted for an $860,000 loss, or no, a $1.2 million loss, and we're doing so much better than that, but we're going to improve and only have a $991,000 loss. Is that what that says?
But that's as of December though, isn't it?
That's the year, I believe.
I can pass that. I will pass that through to the Director. Yes.
Through you, Mayor. The forecast is at December, and we'll be reassessing the budget numbers or the forecast as at the end of March. There are obviously ups and downs that occur during the year. At the moment, the main improve that we do have is around the interest rates. So we've factored that in, and we suggest that we'll need to factor in another improvement at the end of March.
Okay. Do we have any other? Yes.
Just a brief question, going back to Councillor Armstrong's question on the swings and things. When the depreciation point comes up, do we go back and reassess the actual life, the actual status of it? It just seems like the Burton's Reserve equipment was replaced quite a short time ago. I guess Is it possible to economise by stretching the age of those that infrastructure as much as is safe, I guess?
Yeah, you can. You can, reassess. You can also reassess the need and say you're not going to replace something full stop. Yeah, I know, but we've got the option as long as it's safe and it's assessed appropriately for the relevant asset class. You can adjust asset life. There's obviously accounting standards and things we need to be cognizant of. The specific equipment at Burton's Reserve we're talking about is the wooden boat, which has been there for over 20 years.
That's the old one,
yeah. And is beyond maintaining. We have attempted to maintain it, but it's a 20-year-old wooden structure that's been in the elements and got a lot of love from a lot of kids, and it needs to be replaced.
Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Canberra-Smith.
Thank you. The $500,000 Franklin Foreshore development, what does that actually comprise?
Through to... Yes.
Yeah,
So there's a number of different aspects to that project. There's the public access on the front of the foreshore there, but there's also a component around 2 jetties for the 2 trusts in that area and upgrading those. Now we're in the process of working with those trusts to we have a grant in that space, so that money has come from a grant, and we're working with them around the administration of who does the actual construction work and project manages that. So we are working in that space, but it's a component of upgrading that foreshore, but then also the 2 jetties that's with those trusts under their ownership.
So will that satisfy the people who've been saying there's not enough space for bigger boats to moor and stuff? No.
No, that's a separate issue.
Yeah,
this
okay.
is specifically for those trusts to use, the Wooden Boat Trust, yep, and the other, to utilise that as for their own use, exclusive use, sorry, is the term I'm looking.
So that $500,000 is grant funded?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to close? No? Okay, if that's the case, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. 17.1, Cygnet Coast Road Dead Tree Assessment. Report number 17.002/24. I refer councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move a motion, please? Councillor Gibson, seconded. Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to speak to this?
Look, I think it's a complicated little thing. If you extrapolate the sort of costs we're talking about out to all of the roads, it seems like an enormous figure. So I guess I'd like to be reassured that the work's being done that needs to be done for risk, but no more than that, and focusing on dead trees and trees that are less, high risk. I wouldn't want to see. It seems like a lot of trees. There are a lot of trees along that road. I drive it every day, so I know it's a tree-lined road, and more so than many. So I guess it's more a question than anything.
Yeah.
Look, it is. Council maintains, vegetation management all the time anyway, and are continually doing tree assessments. This, as you know, is a response to an annual general meeting motion that was passed to undertake a particular review of Cygnet Coast Road, which we've done to a higher degree of detail, I guess, and the number is significant. So we've had a qualified arborist look at that, not at individual tree level, at a broadacre level. We've broken it up into 10 different segments, and effectively the dollars we're looking at, given the scale of it, is for the amount of time. It's not for individual tree removal. So there is it could go up and down when we actually get down to the work. It's obviously in our interest to minimise the amount of tree work we need to do. So to reassure you, it's absolutely only things that pose an intolerable risk. And we will be leaving, it's in our interest because we don't want to overspend in this area. It's a lot of money. And also we absolutely recognise the important habitat value of dead and dying and trees full stop. So we'll be minimising that work just to deal with stuff that's risky. It's not just dead trees, it's also just overhanging limbs that are, have poor growth, etc. So it'll be a stage-by-stage process to deal with those. And in terms of the extrapolation to other roads, it's an easy one to get worried about. I'm comforted by the fact that we are continually reviewing this stuff. And Cygnet Coast Road is one that there is quite significant dieback of trees along that road, have been for some time. It's because the road is incredibly tightly wound through the trees themselves and close to the coast, which is suffering from erosion. There's a whole bunch of contributing factors here to that particular dieback, and ultimately it's a road where the other side of the risk equation is the number of vehicles on a particular road. So it is one that's relatively unusual with lots of very tight corners, reasonably high numbers of traffic, and roads of that type generally have a larger setback from the trees. This one, it's right jammed in there. So it's a particularly riskier environment than the norm, with many more trees than the norm, exhibiting poor growth characteristics than the norm. It is a standout feature, and I think that's why it came through at that annual general meeting, and it is alarming, the number to deal with. We will be, we address this through our capital work program, and as it's in there as well, we've put in bids for Safer Rural Road funding to support this. So we hope that will happen as well. But we will be very judicious in the tree work we do. This work doesn't necessarily mean removal of a tree; it can mean lopping a tree, rebalancing a tree, etc.
There has been some trees go on Esperance Coast Road as well that have been dangerous.
We have done a lot of tree work in the last 2 years. There's been a significant amount of risky trees that have been there for a long time have been removed, and we need to do that, and we need to keep that broader awareness of the risks to the public that we have. It's uncommon that public are injured by falling trees, but it's a possibility, and we need to take it on, and this is what it looks like.
Every time there's wind, I can assure you that there is branches smashed on the road.
It's the nature of living
that's right. Councillor Hammersmith and then Councillor Jessup.
I just wondered, is that the estimated 400,000? Is that purely the arborist work? Does it also include traffic management costs and all those sorts of things as well, or are they in addition?
It's the whole lot. Traffic management incorporated.
Oh, great, thank you.
Councillor Jessup.
Similar question. So is that well, there's probably three parts to this question. Is that a contractor cost? Is that a cost that can be spread over maybe a couple of financial years in terms of a risk assessment? And thirdly, given that we've got a number of roads on coastal areas that would be suffering exactly the same problems, is this a service we should be looking at maybe bringing in-house, and should we be looking at an economic analysis of having our own tree team for a period of time? And do you want to have that OH&S risk? It's probably the fourth part.
No. Tree work is highly specialised work. Council did have had a quite highly qualified arborist on council. Even then, you need a team with significant qualifications in order to do it safely. And it is one of these ones where we haven't been in this game in a big way. The degree of specialist equipment, high capital costs, etc. It just makes sense to stick with local providers who this is what they do.
Maybe a shared service. Anyway, thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
Just a question. Often roads have different setbacks, and often in rural areas you can find fence lines right up to a metre back from the road. So what is who's responsible? Is council responsible for a certain meterage back from the road, or do they rely on a fence line which
Yeah.
It's been probably there for 100 years.
Yeah.
So what's the who's responsible for what tree and how close to the, or how far back is our responsibility?
The answer is it varies, but also never believe a fence. So we have highly variable tidal boundaries against the road. The general for a rural road of that type is generally an 18 metre carriageway, so 9 metres from the centre line either way. Cygnet Coast Road does not have that for the majority of the road length, but yeah, we have tidal boundaries all over the place. But ultimately, trees on private property are the responsibility of that property owner.
Yes, Councillor Gibson.
And will we be putting an expression of interest out and assessing tenders for this work, or is that the proposal?
The company that has been given the quote for this work actually is under tender with council, because we do significant tree work throughout the year, so you've already approved them under a tender process.
When we commenced more significant tree work last year, we sought to formalise these arrangements.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Trees are difficult, and I expect it's not going to get easier. There will be a new recruitment of potentially dying trees after this really dry summer we've had. So it's an ongoing issue to manage. And I've just gone blank on the really interesting thing I was going to say.
Well, that's all right. Has anybody else got a question? We come back to you? No? No? You're right? No? Okay. Councillor Gibson, have you got a closing?
Just in response to what the CEO was saying, anecdotally, the formation of that road and the changing of the flow of water was quite a big cause in a lot of the downstream the lower trees dying. So hopefully this might clear up some of that, and we're not changing the way the water flows anymore. So, yeah.
Thank you. You remembered?
Community engagement around it.
Yep.
I think it's important that it's not just regarded as a works project. So I guess
we did.
I suspect you've perhaps got it in hand, but just a comment on the value of keeping community informed and aware of what's happening as trees are removed.
Yep. And I think if you have a look in the work notice, there'll be.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's works in the road reserve, so we will be notifying people of upcoming work. It'll be a similar process to, given the scale, it's a similar process to the more detailed notification we provide when we're resheeting a road, to let people know there may be inconveniences in their area, etc. We won't be consulting on if individual trees are going to be coming down or not. It'll be awareness raising and explaining the reasons why, and reinforcing that our interest is in preserving as much as we can, but maintaining public risk, maintaining public safety, and getting that balance right.
Okay.
And that term you used, intolerable risk, I think.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's out of the tree assessment process. Once it reaches
important.
intolerable,
Yeah.
it's got to go.
Right.
Very
Yes.
quickly, I just wondered if DSG have any liability or contribution to make to this sort of work?
Only.
Not on our roads.
Only on their roads.
Part of Cygnet Coast Road is DSG, isn't it? Does it stop at some point?
That's around on Leamington Road.
Oh.
Good try though.
Yep.
We will always try that on them. I assure you, where it's applicable, I won't be cutting down their trees.
Yeah. And in fairness to DSG, they've been doing a bit of work too of removing some along Caswells Bay and so forth. Yep. Okay. So no further. Councillor Gibson? Nope.
I think we've
All right.
discussed it long enough.
Yep. Okay. If that's the case then, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors present and the motion is carried. 18, there's no community wellbeing reports, no. 19, we're about to move into closed council. So I'd like to thank those in the gallery tonight for attending and watching at home. The next ordinary meeting of council is on Wednesday the 20th. Wait a minute. When's the next meeting? Yep, 24th of April at 6 p.m. I'd just like to wish you all a happy Easter. Please stay safe on the roads. And I hope there's no accidents on your corner, Richard. And yeah, I hope Easter Bunny finds you all. So yes, thank you for attending. Thanks. Thanks, Noel. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. I don't know. What did I do wrong? You shut the... The recommendation is that the meeting now be closed to the public at 7:15. Pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations to discuss the following matters. Do I have a councillor to move a motion to go into closed? Councillor Campbell-Smith and Councillor Robertson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. I advise that in accordance with the Huon Valley Council's audio recording of council meeting policy, recording of the open session of the meeting ceased at